In a library in Paris, there's a set of notebooks you are not allowed to touch without signing a waiver. They're kept in lead-lined boxes. To read them, you put on protective clothing because the paper itself is radioactive and it will stay dangerous for well over 1,000 years. The handwriting inside belongs to a woman most people can sum up in a single sentence. The scientist who discovered radioactivity. Except she didn't. Somebody else did that, a year before she even started. What she actually did was harder to fit on a poster, and it cost her far more than anyone remembers. She won the highest prize in science twice, and in between those two prizes, her own adopted country sent a mob to her front door. The saint in the lab coat was a real person. The story built around her got sanded down until almost nothing sharp was left. Marie Curie. She was born in the autumn of 1867 in Warsaw, in a piece of Poland that didn't appear on any map. The country had been carved up by its neighbors, and her corner of it belonged to the Russian Empire. Her name then was Maria Sklodowska. Her father taught maths and physics, her mother ran a girls' boarding school, and the home was Polish to the bone at a moment when being Polish was close to a crime. In her school, the lessons had to be given in Russian. When an inspector walked in, the children hid the Polish books and switched languages mid-sentence. She was the best student in the building, and it got her nowhere, because she ran straight into a wall that had nothing to do with how clever she was. Warsaw's university didn't take women, so she did what a lot of ambitious young Poles did. She went underground. There was a thing in the city they called the Flying University, secret classes that shifted from flat to flat to stay ahead of the police, teaching in Polish the science and history the Russians had banned. That's where it really began. There was no money to send two daughters to Paris, and both of them wanted to go. Maria and her older sister Bronia made a deal. Maria would work first and pay for Bronia's medical degree in Paris. Once Bronia was qualified and earning, she would pay Maria's way in turn. So Maria took a job as a governess for a wealthy family out in the countryside, teaching their children, and quietly running free reading lessons for the local peasant kids on the side, which was also illegal. She was good at it. She also fell in love with the family's eldest son, Kazimierz, a gifted young mathematician. They wanted to marry. His parents said no, because she was a penniless governess, and he wasn't willing to fight them on it. It hurt her for years. Decades later, an old man by then, he would sit on a bench in Warsaw in front of a statue of her and simply look at it. She kept her side of the bargain the whole time, wiring money west. And in 1891, at 24, with Bronia finally settled, it was her turn. She got on a train to Paris in a fourth-class carriage, sitting on a folding stool she had carried on herself. She enrolled at the Sorbonne under a French version of her name, Marie, and threw everything she had at it. The trouble was she had almost nothing. She lived in a freezing attic room near the university, so cold on the worst nights she piled every piece of clothing she owned onto the bed just for a little warmth. She sometimes forgot to eat and fainted. And she still came first in her physics degree in 1893, then second in maths the year after, in a language she had only just learned. In 1894, she met a quiet, already respected physicist named Pierre Curie, who ran a small lab and cared about almost nothing except the work. He asked her to marry him. She said no, and went home to Poland, because she meant to serve her own country. No Polish university would give her a post, so she came back to Paris. They married in 1895 in a plain civil ceremony, no white dress, no gold rings, just a dark blue outfit practical enough to wear afterwards in the lab. For a honeymoon, they bought 2 bicycles and rode off into the French countryside together. A couple of years earlier, in 1896, a French physicist called Henri Becquerel had noticed something strange. Uranium salts, left in a drawer on top of a wrapped photographic plate, fogged the plate in total darkness, all on their own, with no light and no outside energy. Nobody could explain it, and almost nobody cared. Marie chose it as her doctoral subject precisely because it was a blank space nobody else wanted. Now here is the fact that got flattened later. She did not discover those rays. Becquerel did. What she did was bigger. Using a delicate instrument Pierre and his brother had built, she measured the rays with real precision, and she proved the effect came from inside the atoms themselves, not from any chemical reaction. She gave the whole phenomenon the name we still use: radioactivity. Then she tested a heavy black ore called pitchblende, and found it was far more active than its uranium could possibly account for. Something else was hiding inside it. Working in a leaky converted shed that a visiting chemist compared to a cross between a stable and a potato store, she and Pierre boiled down ton after ton of ore by hand. In 1898, they pulled two brand new elements out of it. The first she named polonium, after the country that still didn't exist on the map. The second she called radium. It glowed. They kept little tubes of it beside the bed, and she wrote about going into the lab at night just to see the faint blue light hanging there in the dark. She thought it was beautiful. In 1903, the Nobel Prize in Physics went to the study of radioactivity. The committee's first plan was to honor Becquerel and Pierre Curie, and to leave Marie's name off it altogether. A Swedish mathematician on the inside quietly warned Pierre what was coming. Pierre wrote straight back and made himself clear. He would not accept a prize for this work unless his wife was recognized alongside him. So her name went on the award, and she became the first woman ever to win a Nobel Prize. They were suddenly famous, which the two of them hated. The newspapers wouldn't leave them alone. The prize money did help. For the first time, she could hire an assistant and stop grading exams just to pay the rent. France had handed her a share of the highest honor in science. Hold on to that, because the very same country and a lot of the very same newspapers were about to turn on her hard enough to nearly run her out of it. On the 19th of April 1906, Pierre was crossing a busy street in the rain, the Rue Dauphine near the river. He stepped out from behind a horse-drawn cab and into the path of a heavy wagon. He slipped, went under the wheels, and one of them crushed his skull. He was 46, and he was gone before he hit the ground. She was 38, with two small daughters, and the man she had built her entire life and worked beside was simply not there anymore. She started a private journal that she wrote directly to him, as though he might still read it. What happened next was almost unheard of for the time. The Sorbonne offered her Pierre's teaching post, the professorship he had held. She took it. On her first day, she walked into a lecture hall packed with people expecting either a collapse or a grand tribute, and she began by taking up Pierre's course exactly where he had left off. No speech. No thanks. She had just become the first woman ever to teach at the Sorbonne, and she did it by refusing to make herself the story. In 1911, two things landed on Marie Curie in the same few weeks. The first was a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for isolating pure radium and pinning down exactly what it was. It made her the first person in history to win two, and to this day she is the only person who has ever won in two different sciences. The second thing was a scandal. She had grown close to a fellow physicist, Paul Langevin, a former student of Pierre's, who was unhappily married and looking to separate from his wife. Private letters between them were stolen and handed to the newspapers, and the press went for her throat. She was a foreigner. She was a woman who had taken a Frenchman from his family. Papers even printed that she was secretly Jewish, which she was not, and used it as a slur regardless. A mob gathered outside her house, with her two young daughters inside, shouting for the foreign woman to go home. And right in the middle of that, a member of the Nobel Committee wrote to her. Given the scandal, he suggested, perhaps she ought to stay away from Stockholm and not come to collect the prize. She wrote back that an award for chemistry had nothing whatever to do with her private life, and that she would be there. She went, and she accepted it in person, with her head up, while half of France was calling her a homewrecker. One of the few public figures who defended her was a young physicist named Albert Einstein, who wrote telling her to ignore the hogwash, his own word for it, and that the mob's behavior disgusted him. When the First World War broke out in 1914, she did something nobody expected of a middle-aged Nobel laureate. She learned to drive. X-rays could find a bullet or shrapnel or a shattered bone inside a wounded man, but the machines all sat in hospitals far behind the lines, where the badly hurt couldn't reach them in time. So she put the machine into the car. She fitted vans with X-ray gear and their own generators, and drove them to the front herself, right up to the field hospitals, so surgeons could look inside a soldier before they started cutting. The troops nicknamed them the Little Curies. She talked wealthy women into paying for a fleet of about 20 of them. She trained 150 more women to run the machines. And she brought her own daughter, Irene, still a teenager, up to the front to work beside her under fire. By the end of the war, counting the mobile vans and the fixed stations she set up in the hospitals, more than 1 million wounded men had been X-rayed. She had spent 4 years soaking up radiation from those machines, on top of 20 years in the lab, and she never once billed the army or asked for a scrap of credit. People still repeat a pair of claims about her that fall apart the second you check them. Start with the big one, the one you've already caught in this video. She did not discover radioactivity. Becquerel found the rays, and that credit is his. What she gave us was the name, the proof that it comes from deep inside the atom, and two brand new elements. That is more than enough on its own. It never needed the borrowed discovery stacked on top. The second one is quieter and uglier. During the scandal in 1911, the newspapers branded her a Jewish outsider, corrupting French men, and that line still turns up in some tellings today. She wasn't Jewish. She grew up in a Catholic Polish family and had drifted into a private agnosticism. The label was simply invented to make a foreign woman easier to hate. Both of these got repeated so many times they set like concrete. Neither one is true, and she deserves the real version, which is stranger and a good deal more impressive than the myth. By the 1920s, her health was failing in ways nobody wanted to name out loud. Her fingertips were cracked and scarred from a lifetime of handling radium. She had a constant ringing in her ears, her eyesight was going, and she was tired in a way that sleep didn't fix. For decades, she had insisted radium was safe. She carried tubes of it around in her pockets. Her lab notebooks, her furniture, even her cookbook, all of it drank in radiation that you can still measure today. On the 4th of July 1934, at a sanatorium high in the French Alps, her body finally gave out. Her doctors called it aplastic anemia, a collapse of the bone marrow. Other accounts call it leukemia. The exact name is still argued over. What isn't argued is the cause. Radiation from the element she had discovered and the X-ray machines she had driven through the war built up over 40 years until her marrow simply stopped making blood. Nobody can say for certain which mattered more, the lab or the war. The faint glow she had found so lovely in the dark had been counting down the whole time. She was buried beside Pierre in a quiet cemetery just outside Paris, and for a while that seemed to be the end of it. Her science didn't die with her. In 1935, just 1 year after she was gone, her daughter Irene won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, together with her own husband, for creating radioactivity artificially, working in the very institute her parents had built. The same family, the same field, a second generation of prizes. Irene would later die of leukemia too, almost certainly from the same cause as her mother. Then in 1995, 60 years on, the French president had Marie and Pierre's remains carried into the Pantheon in Paris, the great domed tomb where the nation buries the people it is proudest of. She was the first woman ever placed there for her own achievements, and not as somebody's wife. The president called her the first lady in French history, honored on her own merit. And that brings us right back to those notebooks. They sit in the National Library in Paris, sealed inside lead-lined boxes. And if you want to read Marie Curie's own handwriting, you have to sign a form accepting the danger and put on protective gear, because the radium she measured with her bare hands has a half-life of 1600 years. Those pages will still be dangerous long after everyone watching this is gone. It might be the most honest monument she has. The work outlived her, and so did the price she paid for it. She wasn't a saint, and she wasn't a symbol. She was a poor girl from an occupied country who taught herself science in secret, lost the man she loved to a wet street in a cart, got called a whore by the same nation that later laid her in its temple of heroes, drove X-ray vans through a war, and won the top prize in her field twice in 2 different sciences, which nobody else has managed before or since. And she did all of it while the thing that made her famous was quietly killing her, and she chose to keep going anyway. The statue is the easy version. The person was harder and far better. If this gave you a Marie Curie you hadn't met before, there's a whole shelf of these on the channel. And tell me below. Knowing exactly what it cost her, the burns, the exhaustion, the early death, do you think she would have done a single thing differently?